Um, so just this is going to be a quick conversation. I just met Jeremy over Twitter/X a couple weeks ago. I think I replied to something he posted, and we got talking over just DMs about ShapeUp and kind of how we've used it in our business. And so we adopted ShapeUp a couple years ago. I did another interview with Ryan Singer. You can check that out on our YouTube channel, where we just interviewed him and figured out what's the best way to actually use ShapeUp, as an agency. If you're selling projects to other clients, it's kind of another layer of complexity versus just doing work on your own. So we've been doing that for 2 or 3 years, and then we've just recently also launched our own products, which we're continuing to use ShapeUp, kind of more of like a SaaS product. So Jeremy saw that interview, said, "Hey, let's like nerd out about some agency ShapeUp stuff," and so we thought let's just share it on the channel. So thanks, Jeremy, for hopping on. But maybe just give us like a quick background, because guys, I just met Jeremy. This is the first time we're talking, so I'd love to hear kind of how you got to do what you're doing today and go from there.
Yep, absolutely, and appreciate that you're willing to talk about this stuff with me.
Yeah.
So I saw the interview, and then I followed you on Twitter to see what other, if you might say something else about this. And then you saw my post because my @music handle got stolen by X/Twitter.
That could be another video for another day.
Yeah, just
I
recently.
definitely want to hear about that at some point.
I've been a software developer for about 20 years. I say software developer, like all things around that, right? I've done political campaigns. I've done project management, right? Currently I'm the director of engineering at a nonprofit at a place called Life Happens. But due to business decisions, like we're transitioning out of the SaaS app that we currently have. So I've decided to go kind of pivot from my old, doing one-off projects by myself and into an agency, right? So I focus on Laravel myself, and so Also, I'll say, like, we've done plenty of Agile, right? And there's just a lot that I don't love about Agile. And as I'm moving into this new venture, the idea of just overseeing a bunch of, I think Ryan calls it putting the project through the paper shredder, right?
Yep.
Breaking big projects into these tiny little pieces and just managing these tiny pieces and being over budget and over scope every single time, right? Like, this doesn't feel like a good life. So ShapeUp, I've heard about it for years, and suddenly when I'm faced with my new venture, I was just like, oh, this feels like all the solution to, maybe not all, but a big piece of what I've disliked about software projects. So that's where. So I'm trying to find out more information. There's not a lot out there specifically about using ShapeUp for client work. And
Right.
so I mentioned to you, you've got probably the best video on it so far. 37 Signals did a podcast episode or two with Loop, a group
Okay.
that, have you seen this?
I think so. Yeah, I think I've seen that.
And they've also got a website. It's on their website. It's part of, who they are, like you guys, which impressed me. You've got a whole page kind of describing, this is our process. So yeah, that's my entry point. And so now I want to sit back and learn all the ins and outs.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, we've been doing software for about since 2010, just doing everything from websites to apps. And when you're small and there's one or two people, you don't really need a lot of systems. And so we actually built our own task management system that was kind of like a Jira, Kanban style Trello system. So we actually thought that may be a product. So we ended up just building it for ourselves. Built a bunch of things in that made sense to us. And so we've spent a lot of time sort of figuring out ways to do this. When I picked up Ryan's book, been following 37 Signals for a long time,
Sure.
and just started reading it. I read the first chapter. I bought one for everyone on our team. We have a team of 5. And I said, we're all reading this together. Like, so we did a book club every week. We just went through a chapter and then we just discussed it. And our team was just open to the idea of like, just kind of opened our eyes to see, how is this even, like what it made what we were doing before look just like a giant mess. And
Mm.
so when we got into it, we realized there was definitely a better way. And we actually changed our entire business model. We used to do all these quotes and try to figure out like, here's this 6-month project, which is crazy to try to estimate, to a client and put dollar signs on it.
Hmm.
And so we broke it down into shaped pitches of, 1, 2, 4, or 6 week products. And so when a client comes to us, we do this shaping process that we charge for as part of our discovery process. And we just tell them, okay, you've got one, we think it's going to be about a 2 week for this, about a 4 week for that, 6 weeks. And then you can buy one project at a time from us. You can't buy everything at once. You just pick it out. You pick, handful of products, projects that you want. But what's helpful with this is we always liken the ideas like because we're doing Shape Up inside with our small team, but we also have to explain it to all the clients. So we're
Sure.
super excited about it, but clients they're just like, I just need my app built, right?
Right.
So we do this discovery project. So if you want to work with us, you go through this, we call it a blueprint discovery project. We build out the blueprints for your app. So, and I'll share all the links and stuff to this as well. You guys are welcome to look at it, copy us. It was working for us. Like, I think it'll work for other people. And we charge for that. Like, we charge it as a 1 week project. And so, we do these 2 or 3 hour long deep dive Zoom sessions with our clients, and we figure out everything they want to build, and we just take a ton of notes and we start to kind of pull it into projects. And then after that, we go through and add some, figure out how we're going to add more detail to that, and then shape that up into projects. And we come back and present it. So that's where they've kind of put down this first initial payment towards the project. And if they decide to just like the project's going to be, let's say it's going to be like 60 or 70K and their budget was 30, they could at that point say, hey, we don't want to move forward, or we're going to come back later. We've had clients come back 8 months later and say, okay, now we're ready. We went and got
Mm.
funding. We're ready to do the startup. So but the shaped projects are done. And we always say, if you want to roll that, if you do start to work with us, then we take that project, and we actually whatever you invested for the discovery project, and we credit that towards your first invoice. So kind of when we're selling it, it's like a very low risk things to sell, but it really protects us from having to really shape up a lot of client work that never gets done. And so we fixed that problem. Was one of the biggest.
So on that, so you're describing like let's say a new customer comes, potential customer, and then you have these deep seeming, pretty long calls with them, and then you're able to shape from there and give a general, like, this is going to be this many 6-week sessions, right? Let's say,
Yeah.
right? And then um, I assume you have to continue shaping after that, right? As you come up on each 6-week session, or do you solve all that in just
Yeah.
a?
So this is sort of the framework we put around Shape Up, and then there's kind of a lot of details inside of the
Okay, okay.
actual
If
Shape Up.
I'm
No,
getting
you're
ahead of
right.
you,
This is
then
we need to talk about it all. So
okay, okay.
yeah, so the process goes like anyone can book 20, 30 minutes with me. We'll do a call. I'll hear what you're trying to do. Um, Ask a bunch of questions, see if it's a good fit, see if we can even help you. That's our first kind of sales contact.
Mhm.
And we just let people book on Calendly. It's just me and sorry, my dog is walking around
No
here wanting
worries.
to get out. But so we do that, and then at the end of that call, I said, great, if you do want to work with us, like, we go to this discovery project. I have a order form that we send them to. I do not invoice them. I don't send them a contract. The contract is all built into the order form. There's a checkbox. They can agree to everything. Um, And you can check out some of the stuff on Twitter. I just actually shared. We send these gift boxes to them. It's got a copy of Shape Up. It's got some coffee
Mm,
beans and a bunch of coffee things that go with that. So they get this.
okay.
It costs us about $200 to get these boxes put together,
Wow.
but it like we just picks up the expectations way high for clients. Um, and so we do that. They book their kind of first deep dive. We'll go and kind of hear everything we want. We typically have me on the call. We have our lead developer, and then sometimes we'll have a designer as well,
Mhm.
also on the call. And so we'll just hearing it from lots of different angles. We're each taking notes, and then we'll kind of do it live, like in front of them. They'll start to see in Notion. We do a little Kanban board where they can see each project kind of going into like, okay, you need this user authentication. We think it's going to be 2 weeks to do this. Oh, and we've really asked questions like, do you need it to integrate with these, 2 or 3 services? Okay. Oh no, you just want a really simple one. Okay, we can get it for a week. Um, and so we kind of build this as very, very loose. And then by the end of that 2 hour call, we typically say, hey, like you're looking at 10 to 12 weeks. And then I can tell them because we have a per week price on all that. Hey, you're looking at, 50K. Hey, you're looking at 75K for this whole thing. And that's enough for them to say, okay, I think this is kind of what we were expecting. If we're way high, then we go back and we say, we can kind of look at it and say, well, maybe we can, we like to set, if we were planning 6 weeks to do this mobile app over here, because you asked for it to do 20 different things, uh, let's make it do 2 things really well and get it to 4 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever.
Sure.
And so it's always a trade-off, right? Like, okay, we can do something for less. Like we've got clients who come in and do something for 5 to 10K, and that's all they needed from us. Because we just kind of picked out a very small sliver, a little kind of a thin slice is what they talk about in the book,
Hmm.
um, of getting that kind of that first prototype. But so that helps us. That's kind of how we negotiate it, and then we'll go off as a team, spend a few hours, and literally go through each one, and we write out our pitches in kind of long form, as if I was emailing you and saying, "Hey, here's the problem." So we have like a problem section at the top. Here's the
Hmm.
solution, and I can pull some of this up. I don't mind showing you some of our templates here. Let's see if this will work. To So um, this is just one of our templates here. So we are in Notion. I just mentioned we're not on Basecamp, so you can argue about that in the comments if you guys have opinionated views on that. But Notion has been fantastic for us because we have different layers and we have so many different databases and different views when we present it to the client. They are actually in our Notion projects. We share those directly with them. Okay, let me share my screen there.
Okay.
Cool. Um, all right, let's make this a little better. Okay. So we typically have like a problem, and just stop me if you have questions on any of this or if this is
Hmm.
going into this is kind of what a project would look like. We go through the problem, like this is just straight kind of shape up language solution, like what are our mock-ups, views, affordances. We'll do little fat marker sketches in here, what we think the solution is. We'll then go through and identify any rabbit holes. So what are things like, hey, we've never integrated with this API before. Hey, we've never like had to build, for this very specific version of Android that they need.
Sure.
Um,
Known unknowns.
Known unknowns for sure. And what are this typically like? Where if we were to start the project tomorrow, like we'd want to dive deep into these rabbit holes as fast as possible, and figure out like, hey, since we've never integrated this API, like we need to do that first, and then kind of figure out how we can kind of uh, get that unknown out of the way. And this is kind of the uphill of the hill chart, right? Like it's going
Yep.
uphill to the top. We have a bunch of unknowns. We don't even know how big this hill's going to be until we kind of identify that like this is how it's going to work, and then it kind of everything starts to make sense, and we hit that downhill slope. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and we identify out of bounds. This is a client favorite. They love it when we get to this part because at this
Huh.
up until this point, it's all been really exciting and fun. And oh, you're going to do this and that and this other thing, and then we start to write down like we will not be doing this, we will not be doing that, and then all of a sudden like whoa, 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 we need to, the scope changes quite a bit. And then we kind of just jot down the success criteria. and this is, I've seen 37 Signal guys and stuff propose like an 800 word um, pitch. So this part of here, we try to keep it around that.
Okay.
We don't go into like detailing like, oh, we're going to use this, programming strategy, or this is what are going to be how the architecture is going to get working. We're going to generally explain the problem and the solution. This is really what it's all in client speak, right? It's kind of like translated to clients. We don't use jargon in this wherever we can. Um, we want anyone to be able to pick this up, whether it's the designer, the client, the developer. They all should be able to kind of pick up the pitch and kind of get a good idea of what all is involved. And at the top here, we kind of just identify a lot of just here's our 1, 2, 4, 6 weeks. We have like hours that we've dedicated. So when I pick 2 weeks, I go to 4 weeks is 100 hours. 6 weeks. I'm just giving away all the trade secrets right here. So whoever's
Great.
ever want to implement this, should probably be like a lot more than just a free YouTube video. But and then we do a client database, so you can pick clients there,
Okay.
which client you want. And then this project actually gets a status of inbox, and once it's and everything goes in inbox during that first client meeting. And then what we do after that is we put it into a shaped category, to where everything gets shaped. And then from there, once they say, okay, we're actually going to do the work, that's where it gets scheduled. And then we go through in progress review, all the way down to completed. And the best one of all is the discard, because you just throw that at the end. We're just skipping this whole thing. We're not, not doing the work for that. And then we do have tasks that then relate back to a project. And that's where we get really technical. Like, this developer is going to do this designer needs to design this part, this thing needs, and we break it into all the little pieces. Here we have a similar kind of Kanban style board for all the tasks. So let me pause there and see if there's any other questions you had so far.
One question, and maybe if you're going to get to it, you just tell me, we'll get to that. But they talk about in the book having two developers and one designer for a team of 3. Is that your guys' same makeup? Because I know on your website it shows teams of 3, which is the same as
typically. Yeah, we do. So we'd like to do. Really, it's down to 2. I think 2 works really well. We typically have one person responsible for technical and one person responsible for the kind of everything else. So the interface, working with the client. We have slowly hired better and better people in our team, to where everyone on our team can be in a call with a client, talking numbers, talking weeks, right? So a lot of times agencies, like, they try to outsource and stuff to, wherever. We've just kept like getting and training our team to be on calls with clients, what to say, what not to say, to where that designer and that developer can have a call without me. And they can have a productive call. They can talk about, hey, this is moving from 1 week to 2 weeks, or now that you add that's 4 weeks. The client knows what that is from a budget standpoint. We don't have to argue about dollars, but we can have very meaningful conversations as far as, like, at the end of the day, you're just trying to get, like, they're asking for more work. We need to tell them it's going to be more work. They don't know how much work it is. So when we give them that number, we all kind of are talking the same thing by talking in weeks. That was a very helpful tool for us. It's very difficult, in the previous 9-10 years before we implemented ShapeUp, we would deal in hours. And so you had these like hundreds of hours of, like, in an invoice, and like, how on earth are you estimating like 300 hours to do this one, app? That's just insane. Like, humans are horrible estimators, right? So
100%. So you have kind of like so you have designers that are the primary communicator with the client, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they kind of take the lead from the thinking of the design, like implementing a lot of the client's vision on the design, especially going back to the pitch and implementing to make sure we are kind of following those original requirements. the designer and the developer will work together to say like, we try to leave as much freedom as possible because the client, they really just want a functional app to do a set of things. They really don't care like how we get there.
Yeah.
And so we leave a lot of that off the pitch so that the designer and developer can be on that very kind of exploratory journey of figuring out, okay, let's try this solution. Okay, let's try that. They know the end goal is like we need users to sign in, but there's so many ways to accomplish that, and also allows us to have a little bit of freedom to not just do the same sign-in authentication method we did in the 3 projects before this. We can actually, hey, I saw this new, tool. I want to try it. So we go in, and that's when we experiment and we try new things in that space. I would say that both of our developers and our designer can both talk with the clients, and they do interface directly. We try to just keep it so simple. I think we say we don't have project managers in our company. We do have product managers, and those are typically, either the developer or the designer will kind of designate someone as the product owner. And they just helping make sure that the product, what's coming out at the end is great quality. And we are happy to stand by it. So.
Okay. And then the Ryan Singer talks about in their world, right? They have these 6-week cycles with a 2-week cool down. Do you guys have gaps? Do you go right into another 6 weeks that you've already shaped? What does that look like?
Yeah, our team would like that, I think. Those are one of the things. It's tough. I think if we were only building our own stuff, which we are doing more and more of that, and that is kind of the end goal. I kind of have a dream one day to have kind of like 2 teams, one where we could just be doing agency work, and then a second one that's just on ours, kind of almost having 2 companies.
Sure.
But for now, like it's really, I think we would do the 6-week and the 2-week cool down if we were only working on our own stuff, because we'd be fully in control of it. And that's part of where like it's like in an ideal world, you are fully in control of the timeline. Whereas when you're working with a client, they have deadlines, they're running their own business. And they have also expectations that we're trying to constantly, set as best we can of how this work's happening. I'll say like what works for us right now is we do everything in a monthly 4-week cycle. So we just do calendar months to make it really easy. We will do a meeting with the team for 90 minutes where we all hop onto a live call. We do very few live calls, but we do once a month to 90 minutes, all get on and we look at all the work that has to be done for the next month. And we decide on that. It's kind of like the pitch meeting they talk about, where you kind of veto that. We're a small team, so everybody's on that call and we can all, I kind of have the final say, of course, but we leave it over to the team. Like, what do we feel is really doable this next month? What can we say yes to? What can we not say yes to? And I use that. Like, we have 5 people. I can see how many weeks worth of work we have, and I can tell that we're booked for the next month. And it's a great, from a sales standpoint, we're talking about this from a lot of different angles, but sales standpoint, like, hey guys, like we have 2 weeks left. Do you want them or not? Like we can push this to the next month. We have that, but a lot of agencies will just take whatever work they can get and just figure it out on the back end. Like having that little bit of scarcity keeps it calm for us, keeps it calm for our clients, and we don't have to, kill ourselves. And we've kept that kind of the work ethic of, and kind of how 37 Signals operates, is that super calm. It doesn't have to be crazy at work. One of our favorite books as a team, just keeping it calm and just kind of knowing what our capacity is as a team, and then just delivering on that and just selling only to what we know we can deliver well.
Okay. And so, and again, if you've still got future stuff you're going to talk about, you can cut me off, but kind of related to the question I asked before, which is this idea. So let's say you've got a 6-week window, and then there's going to be 4 of them, let's say, estimated, right? So you're coming up on the next 6-week one. Are you right into it? You stop one on a Friday. At some point you've got, and again, book wise, right? you have a release period? Do they need to, does the client need time to kind of live with that before they give feedback, before you go forward? Uh, are you already shaped for the next 6 week cycle and dialed that in, what the
Yeah.
scopes are? And
So, okay, one thing that has been helpful, I get what you're saying. We haven't, it's not so beautifully like 4 weeks and then a break and then like nicely spaced. It's typically like we say we deal with deadlines in months. Like we're going to do this thing in November. We don't put dates. I don't know that it's going to be on the 17th or the end of month. It's just going to be November. We know we'd
okay.
like to be done with this project totally by, or this entire client's, group of work by this date, or in this calendar month, essentially. What we do is there's a great article, I think it's from Ryan as well, talking about the difference between reactive work and then
Hmm.
the shaped work.
Hmm.
So there is this thing where, like I said, we've released it to the client. We're kind of done from our side. They may come back, they may try it on a different device, they find a bug. That typically, if it's within the scope, we don't do 4 weeks of work for a 4 week project and then hand it to them at the end of 4 weeks. Like they're seeing it at 1 week, they're seeing it at 2 weeks, they're seeing it at 3 weeks. And not just seeing it like, okay, there's the app. We're giving them a link, we're sharing, putting it on their phones for mobile apps, um, letting them play with it the whole way through so that they're kind of helping review the app, review the bugs in real time with us. They're part of that team. Um, and so it's hopefully we've got through most of the obvious bugs, and then we do something where we typically have like a reactive project where we say, hey, for this client, there's a reactive project for November, and we typically price it around 2 week around 1 week for the month. So it gives us a little batch of 20 to 30 hours to just put towards stuff that comes up. Um, Most of the time, like if we're just rolling one project into the next, we won't even bill the clients for that. We'll just use other budget from other projects in that. So it depends on how much of that there is. But yeah, we typically just, if bugs and things pop up, which they always do, we drop it into reactive work. And then we kind of treat reactive work like a mini pitch, because you're going to end up with a bunch of sort of backlog, which I know is not something that you find in ShapeUp.
Hmm.
But you have clients and they're giving you requests, so you kind of have to keep track of that
Yeah.
in somewhere, just at least know that it's there, because you will get asked, in a month or a few weeks, hey, did we get that thing done? Now you got to have it somewhere. So we have everything go to inbox, which is kind of like our backlog. Uh, and then we'll move it through into shaped and so forth with each of those little reactive tasks. Um, and typically, like, even high priority, like uh, emergency situations where like something is actually down, something's broken, it's significantly affecting, more than 30% of the users. Those typically still go into Notion. They still go in as a task. They get marked as high priority, and we deal with all of the communication inside of Notion for that. So there is a log though of that, and it helps our team as well know how to track time towards which project. So time tracking and all of that's going to be, definitely we can get into that as well. But that's been something we've had to automate as well. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I've got a little bit of a gap now in something you've said. So we've talked about the 1, 4, and 6 weeks, but then when you said you think of everything in week or monthly blocks, I miss something in that piece? Do you do not have the 6 weeks?
We
Yeah.
do. It'll just run, the first and like 1.5 months essentially. So we'll kind of run it.
Okay. So
Um,
it's a part of that. It's discussed in that 90-minute call, but you'll know you're gonna talk about it in the next 90-minute call the next month.
yes, it's discussed. Yeah, so it's kind of an ongoing project, because there are projects that will span months, but
Yeah.
it's sort of big picture. These are generally how many weeks we have for this. So we know we can have, one or two people on this 6 week project, for 4 weeks of this first month. The way we do it in Notion is we have use the timeline view, which is very helpful, and you can kind of see it in sort of a Gantt chart sort of thing with the dates, with the calendar, and so you can
Yeah.
kind of see they're going to roll. Our projects kind of go between the months a little bit, but we know generally we're getting this thing done, generally that. And I think that's a good core feature of ShapeUp, is it's not super rigid. It's not like we're writing these requirement docs and we check all the little boxes at the end. There's a lot of flexibility in this as far as the dates and the scope and stuff. There's a, we give it some play. And so that's been very helpful. But yes, we can sell a 6-week project. It just goes a month and a half.
Okay. So how much play do you put into it? Like if you say 6 weeks, what's in your head? Like this could be 7 weeks, right? What kind of play are we talking about?
When I'm looking at it from a business standpoint, we have built enough margin in that we could go 30% over and still be a great project for us.
Okay.
We build that into the margins to make it give us that flexibility. If clients, so that's 30, let's say it's maybe a week's worth of work on a 4-week project potentially could go over, where we wouldn't even build a client. We just kind of roll into it. I look as well, like typically if a client has bought, we have a client that has bought somewhere in the realm of like 30 of these projects in the last year and a half. So they're one of our bigger clients. I'm looking at it as a holistic view of like, okay, of the last 7 projects, we do track every hour and every minute of every project. And so those get entered into Notion. So I can see that like, hey, we thought this was 4 weeks, which is about 100 hours. We are at, 122 and a half hours. And then I can see that right next to the other project where maybe we went under, 20 or so hours. So I kind of look at that, and as long as it kind of nets out to be all okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
If we're maxing out on everything and we're way over, we will do projects where we kind of do a part 2. It's never super clean like you would want it to be, but that's kind of how we've done it. Is sometimes we have like the client asks for X, and then we start building X, and once they see X, they want Y and Z.
Absolutely.
And so we just keep layering it. And so the key thing is to say, hey, this project is paid for and built, and that first feature is done. Now I'm going to go do these other 2 features you asked for, because very quickly, especially if you've got kind of very visionary founder clients, especially those kind of clients we work with, they every time they see something, their whole vision is to see how they can make it better. So they immediately have like you show them the first idea and it works great, then they'll have 3 more ideas, which is perfect because you're selling each feature, you're selling each project. You're like, great, that just pre-sold me on the next batch of work. So, but it's very easy. I've seen agency owners get swept up into like, oh, we could just do this, we could just do that. So we try not to say like, hey, we said the boundaries were here on that out of scope area, and that's where we're going to basically stop ourselves right there.
Okay. And pricing wise, you meant on the website, you've got 3 people per thing, but then when you said you actually have 2, does that change your pricing, or is that part of your margin, or how's?
Yeah, I think you may have seen, like, I can't even remember where we showed that pricing. That's probably an old pricing page.
Oh, okay.
The numbers are probably the dollar amounts.
Got it.
Because we used to tell people what the hourly rate is and all that. I don't recommend that. We don't. No one knows what that is. You asked for this. We think it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks costs X.
Yeah.
$10K. And that way we keep it really, really simple, so we can keep the math in our head. We will use the hours as a reference point for our team to know where we're at, because we use the hours as a lot more strict. Like you were talking about the dates of like, okay, we're going to start this date, end this date, and that helps contain the scope. I use the hours to contain the scope. So it gives a little bit more fluidity between projects. Because the other thing is that the client is kind of part of that 2-person team, right? Because they could give feedback, they can change things. Sometimes we're waiting on feedback for them, so our team will move to something else and then come back. So we try to not have more than 1 or 2 projects per person at a time, but there are times where we're blocked on this because the client is waiting for this thing to happen or that thing to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. And so the clients seem to be, the way you're describing it, they're not like, okay, on the 17th, come hell or high water, I'm going to get X. They're kind of like, okay, we know it's when they're done with it, but it's going to be around that time. And and they're, because they're seeing the process, they already know if it's going to go long or you're going to come early or something like that.
Yeah. So for something, so we have clients that do live events, and in that case, yes, the 17th, there's an event happening, and we are going to send people to this link, and it's got it. There's no like,
Sure.
there's no fuzziness on that. So we will try to, you know, get that ready weeks before and leave as much margin as possible. But that does mean that we have that. We still use ShapeUp because we have that. We set the scope up front. Hey, you have this deadline of this, you know, the 17th, like you said. You know, we only have 2 weeks, so you can't do a 4-week project or a 6-week project. That's not an option. Like, you have 2 weeks, and so that's what we use to contain it. Even if they do want to spend more money and more, we try to push back on that and say, hey, you have 2 weeks. That's realistically what we can get done. And I would say in those high pressure situations, we typically will say like there's 1 week that we can actually do, because you just need to leave that extra margin
Sure.
when something is tight. But yeah, it's tough to, when you're selling that. I kind of go into sales mode. We sell a bunch of stuff. Then I'm also in the projects. We're helping with, and we do a lot of like low code, no code tools like Flutterflow and others to do for some of our projects. And so the pricing that you saw there was for like our custom coded stuff, and we've kind of created some lower pricing options just for low code tools, which really doesn't make sense because low code is actually fantastic. We've become huge fans of Flutterflow over the last few years, and so that's kind of just how we've structured it. Yep.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So I don't have any other questions right off the top of my head. So hopefully you have more things you're thinking of to talk about.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about. I mean, are you working with a team, or how are you? Like,
so because so I'm still doing, like, I'm still fully employed through the end of the year. So I'm just kind of putting all my bricks into place and getting, so I will be working with a team, but like initially it'll be me, and then I'll be building from there. So I'm at the very beginnings of all.
okay.
By the way, what technologies do you guys work with? I'm curious.
So yeah, typically JavaScript, React, Node.js. Typically, that would be like our go-to.
All JavaScript related.
All JavaScript, basically.
Okay.
And then we have 2 of our team members. We also do. We've really gone really deep into Flutter and Flutterflow for some of our mobile apps. And so the product that we are building, that's our internal project, started out on JavaScript, and we've actually gone the other way, and we've moved it into a low code solution. So we went from React, JavaScript to Flutter and Flutterflow. I was so hesitant to make that decision because everybody starts in Flutterflow, like in the low code, and then tries to go, once they scale, they want to have all the extra control. But we finally made that call a few weeks ago, actually, to go kind of all in on the low code. It's been a phenomenal tool for us. And I think I would say, like, if I was starting this again, like if I was going to go launch a new development agency in 2024, I would just go all in on Flutterflow and hire a bunch of team members to do that. It's just, between that and some of the back end, like I've been playing with BuildShip as well. It's very, very hard to like make an argument that you're going to get some sort of like better scaling something for the kinds of clients that we're working for that are paying other development agencies to build stuff. You just, like, we've had mobile apps where we've had 70,000 users on it concurrently, and we have one other app that we have 400,000 users, very, very active, that are on it. It doesn't need like custom code really. So you have a lot more margin to kind of use those tools first. And so especially for clients that come to us with startups, that's part of what I do when in that first blueprint is help kind of, we're obviously creating a plan for them to go. We always say, like, we build it like you're building your dream home. You don't just walk onto the plot of land and just start grabbing a 2x4 and start nailing stuff to get. That's how almost every developer starts building. Is they just you know haul in a framework and then off they go, start building their thing. So we say we build the blueprints. We sit with an architect. We draw everything up. We figure out: do you want a living room? Do you want a kitchen? How big is the kitchen? What kind of
Mhm.
features do you need? Do you
Mhm.
need a front door? Like all these different aspects. And when you start to break it down for clients like that, it's been very helpful for them to see. It kind of makes sense all of a sudden. And now when they ask for requests, it's not just um, oh, we wanted this, but you gave us that. Once you put it into a pitch and into one of these projects, because we have the scope on it, it just makes so much more clear for people. I think I told Ryan, like everybody gets really clear when you put a dollar sign next to their project idea or the thing they want. They're like,
Yeah,
now all of a sudden we may not need that thing once you put that dollar sign next to it.
sure.
Um, yeah.
And is that riffing off of Ryan's concept of like the house? And do you want the view in the tiny house or the large view in a
Yes.
neighborhood? Yeah.
Definitely, and I think it's one of those analogies that does work well for clients because it's so technical and there's this very much this mysterious black box of development and code things that
Hmm.
happen, and so that way we try to make it. If we can inform the clients and give them that idea of where everything's kind of connected and how it all lays out, they can make much better informed decisions as far as you know what they want to invest in, and we really act not just as sort of the developer building it. We act very much as like the CTO hat. At least for me, I'm putting that hat on as if they had hired me as the CTO and I was working with this other company, which is our
Hmm.
company. Um, and so we tried. I've so many times like told clients not to build things a certain way, which would have been 3 or 4 times more revenue for us, but it's not the right decision for them. It's not the right.
Sure.
They want this mansion of a house, but they only have like, it's just themselves that are living there. They don't need
Yeah.
this space. And so, because clients don't know, you kind of have to, uh, when you come to the technical side, they just know I need an app to be on my phone. They don't necessarily need to know, they just need it to work. So they don't really care how you get there. And that's where like some of these low code tools have been phenomenal because it also allows us to iterate a lot faster.
Hmm.
So my like magic secret sauce would be to have this shape up process we've talked about with combining it with sort of the low code. I think that um, that experience just means we can build things incredibly fast and efficiently. Um, and it allows us to really kind of group so much margin in the project that we can really implement the shape up stuff much more intentionally than something that's got a lot lower margins as far as the amount of work it takes to get a feature done.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, that's what I
Okay.
would advise on if I was
So
doing it
you're
again.
so you're shaping harder up front rather than spending time more time on development.
Correct. Yeah, and we don't jump into the code until we have that plan,
Right.
um,
Of course.
and that's why we kind of do the first. Typically, we'll do between 1 and 7 or 8 projects. We'll sort of shape into that, so they kind of know generally what the next kind of 2 or 3 months are, and then we do connect with them all the time. So before we start the next project, we'll say, "Hey, we're getting ready to do this. Let's review this because things may have changed. We may have thought a month ago that you needed it to work this way, but since then the business has changed. We've changed,
Hmm.
the products changed. We need to, adjust and pivot on that. And it allows us to say, hey, okay, let's take that 2 weeks and let's apply it somewhere else into the app. And so it's worked really well for us. Yeah.
And so I get the sense with what you're talking about when you're talking about the low code stuff or no code stuff that you're primarily doing. You're not coming into projects that are existing. You're doing all new projects.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever jumped in and worked on an existing project.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And well, we haven't. It's not that we've never done it. Those are not my favorite. I love working with startups and people that this is kind of the first time they're building an app, or building something that they own 100%. Uh, they've been maybe using another platform that they've been renting, with a
Mhm.
SaaS product, and now they're going to go build their own. Um, That's been a lot more fun, and we get to kind of build it from the ground up. Uh, it's not, I
Right.
mean, we wouldn't turn it down necessarily, but um, anytime as a coder, as soon as you look at some other coders, like the last guy
Oh,
who worked
sure.
on it
Yeah.
was an idiot, and now
Yeah.
you're going to fix all the problems. So that's what typically happens. And we've had people come in and like ask us, and so what we'll do is do like an audit as part of that discovery process. We'll get
Okay.
access to their source code. We'll have one of our team look through it. We'll just pull out all the things that are like potentially wrong with it. And
Yep.
so sometimes we can repurpose things. Clients love it if we could like even just pulling an interface out of something or something that they feel like they've invested a lot of time and energy and money into. If we can kind of repurpose that, that's great. But as you know, like it's sometimes just so much faster to build it from scratch than to try to
Yeah.
like jump in, to the way they're building it. So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah. Keep cracking on. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but
Yeah. So I think how we've also, I'll throw this in. This is a hot topic of the
okay.
day, is OpenAI. Like, how do we use? We
Yeah.
actually do leverage ChatGPT a lot of times for our pitches, not to write the whole pitch, but we will take concepts and ideas and kind of give it to ChatGPT in a very ugly format. Um, and then have it kind of write those longer form things. And we'll sometimes playing right now with having our own custom GPT. That's going to be called like shape up GPT or something, that we're just a
Yeah.
little internal tool that we're playing with.
Yeah.
And what that allows us to do is to give it parameters like, hey, you can't use technical jargon. And if you do, you need to explain to this as someone who's not technical. And so we can kind of give it all these concepts and have it sort of spit back a version of it, and then we can tweak it. I've never seen AI stuff give you anything back 100%. It's 80-90%, and it's getting better, but it needs a
Sure.
human to go through it. Uh, so that's some of the tools we've used, and then another tools, we use Toggle. Like we've gone all in on Toggle for our time tracking. I've used that for about
Oh.
7 years.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. I haven't seen that in a long time. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, they keep updating it, but we've been using that for, I don't know. I feel like since they launched it, we've been we've been paying them, and we just have a person like every Monday go and sync up all the numbers in Notion. We probably could build an API to sync all that for us, but just never
Yeah.
had the time to stop and do that. Um, and so we have a VA do that, keeps our business, like the whole team is constantly seeing like, hey, we said 50 hours, we have 6 hours left, because that's a great bargaining. Clients always understand hours, even though they bought a block of hours. They
Mhm.
understand, like everybody gets like 6 hours. So we have, you've asked for 10 things, we can do two of these, like please pick which two you would like to get done. Right.
Right.
So giving those are great tools to help communicate like scope to clients. So we have just the right number of kind of level of granularity with the hours, and we don't
Mhm.
sweat the hours on a grand scale, like on the big picture. And we don't go back and like bill them for 7 more hours because they went over. We just roll it into the
Yeah.
next thing.
Interesting. And so in the shape up ethos, do you like what's your track record for saying, all right, we're gonna head for this scope and then hit it versus okay, we gotta do the lesser scope. Like, are you guys have you gotten better or good at hitting what you think you're gonna hit, or are you constantly overdo, your eyes are bigger than your stomach, right? In that, like, which is classic, right?
Yeah, I think I tend to. Uh, it depends. The teams, we're working that kind of from multiple personalities on the team. Some
Mhm.
people kind of estimate low as far, and then they spend a lot more time. And some people estimate a lot higher and are just way more efficient when they get to the work. Um,
Mm.
it's just different styles of how people work. So I think that's been key to keep our team the same and keep we're not trying a bunch of different contractors. Like we really need people to work in this very specific way. Uh,
Mhm.
and we are doing, what I think, because our team is sort of project managing themselves, they are seeing the hours, they're kind of self-correcting. And in cases where we get stuck, that's where we can do a quick call. We can address something. We can talk to the client and say, hey, this thing popped up. It was a rabbit hole. It took 3 weeks out of the 4 weeks. Like, we only have a week left to do this. Um, but those were, some requirement that they put that they knew we had to do. So we sometimes will pivot or add another project to so you had 5 features you wanted. Because we only have a week left, we're going to do these 1 and 2 features. I know you really wanted all these other ones. We're going to lump those all into a part 2 and do another 2-week project after this. But we try to keep that project as, hey, we have delivered this to you in the project that you asked for. Now let's go to the next one. Kind of
Yep.
a nice clean separation. Or else you're just constantly working, and as they send stuff, and you just get into that spiral of like, that's where I think most agencies kind of implode, is they just aren't tracking those details and the scope. And we've done that. I know that's happened because we did that as well before we dove into ShapeUp. Is we would just, out of the goodness of our heart, we would keep adding hours, and, oh, let me just do this one more thing for them, and, oh, they
Right.
need this thing. So you keep doing that until you're like, okay, now I need to actually start invoicing. And then all of a sudden the client is like, whoa, 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 like, why are you paying me? All of a sudden, so you get this mismatch of expectations. So
Yeah.
ShapeUp has been great to like set expectations up front. It gives us a nice communication language between the client and us to all be talking the same concepts, and then continually like kind of fine tuning that scope of work to keep it dialed in just right. So it seems like a lot of overkill, like when we get started with a project, but I think clients really enjoy it. Especially, we work with a lot of clients that aren't technical, and they feel
Mhm.
like they're very much in control, and they can kind of make architectural decisions with these
Yeah.
modules we've put together. Yeah.
Interesting. So you guys blueprint everything up really well, but then it sounds like you still allow for some scope change in the middle of a sprint or whatever you call them.
Yeah, once we're in the project, like we will I'm trying to see if I can maybe like pull up one that we just did recently. Um let me see here. Yeah, these get into so many like small technical so um
Yeah.
let me do one of our apps actually. Let me share this. So this is we have an app called Tribe Social that does this community management. And so we shaped this. See, it has like a start and an end date. It's
Mhm.
our internal project that is, it's a low priority. It's a 1-week project. So we talked about, we saw this competitors, school.com. They have this great little like 14-day trial. We said we definitely want that. And so we actually have a very good feature set. So we basically defined the problem like, hey, there's this opportunity and we think we can solve it. Here's how we would solve it. And we just said general things like, we feel like the user flow would look something like this, right? It's not
Mhm.
like line by line what we would need to do. Um, and then we started when you get deep enough into the project, the rabbit holes and the out of bounds get really clear. So until we get to this phase, I don't feel like we've really shaped it until we start to see like, okay, let's try to figure out where this could go horribly wrong and where can we
Uh-huh.
get like a massive time suck in here. And so we typically will start with a rabbit hole, and a lot of times a rabbit hole will become an out of bounds, right? Um,
Uh,
because like this one says like, we have this creator role that we can't isn't going to work very well for us. So we ended up changing kind of who this is going to. We just actually took away um, this one part of our app and said they're not even going to get access to this because it's too much. We have to change. This would have
yeah.
pushed the budget way over because we kind of started with that 1 or 2 week budget at the top. We didn't really want it to go past that, so we just said, hey, let's just. What if we took the whole one half of the app out and didn't even give that to them, and it immediately freed that up. But we haven't started this project, or I think it's starting today at least. Yeah, actually today. So we've kind of got a few things shaped, and so we'll build out the tasks. Like we have to set up Stripe plan. We have to do deploy this on Google Play. So there's like a lot of
Mhm.
tasks that had to be done, and then in these we may put additional details because these could have um, videos and screenshots and other thoughts like within that particular task. Um, so I just wanted to see like the kind of it's general. We're really hard on like where does this project start, where does it end, and then sort of how we get there is there's a little bit of flexibility
Okay.
inside of that. Yeah,
I do. It does my heart good, though. Your description of the, we went to tweak this one thing. We realized we had to, and then we'll just lop off a huge chunk of it, and
yeah,
it'll still be good. Well, like that's kind of what you're going for, right?
yeah, and that's something you can really do and have fun with when it's your app. And
Sure, sure.
or you have clients that trust you incredibly, like you've been working with them for a long time and they do really, really trust you because most clients like they just see that as like a shortcut and they feel like they're still paying a lot for getting a little right and they've like I want
Right.
to do all the things like why not put all the features in. And I think that the latest podcast from Rework was on that, like actually limiting the amount of features in a product is a feature of the product, is
Yeah.
saying like hey we're only going to do these three things like insanely well,
Right.
um, and not trying to like get into a feature battle with your competitors. So
Yeah. Absolutely. I remember the first time I went into I came from back west. I'm in Ohio now, but I went into an In-N-Out, right? And they just had like a handful of things you could order. And then
yeah,
it was amazing. I went, oh, that's great. And then the first time I went into a Chipotle, I looked at and I went, this is going to be great. When they only give you a few things, you know that they have to do them
yeah,
well.
yeah, and that's been exact kind of bring it full circles why we just sort of put the four products. We only sell four things at our company, and they're really just the same product in four sizes. So
Yeah.
four variants on a same SKU. So it does make it it feels simple. And I think when you can build simplicity for the client, like you're saying, when you're choosing something, whether it's actually in the product or even how you're selling these services, it builds confidence with that client, and then they feel like they're in control and can make those decisions. Um, so yeah, good. Any
Yeah.
other closing thoughts or questions or anything I can?
Well, um, yeah, like I have questions, and I'm sure I'll have as I think about this more, and I'm sure I'll go back and rewatch this. I have more questions, but this was fantastic, and I super appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great to meet you, and we'll stay
Likewise.
connected. Yeah, shoot me a message if you guys are watching this. If it's helpful, you could definitely connect with me on Instagram, Twitter. Sorry, I was looking at another Instagram tab here, but yeah, give me Twitter, and I can respond there. And yeah, it was great to meet you, Jeremy. We'll definitely stay in touch. I'd love to see. Let me know when you launch your agency.
Perfect. Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate it.